My name is Russ Goerend. I teach design and communication solutions for Waukee Apex. This is my second year in the Apex program, and before that I taught 6th grade English at Waukee Middle School for 6 years. In the last 2 years of that, I actually taught in the same building as my wife, so we got to drop the kids off together every morning, drive to school together, eat lunch together, see each other in the halls. And, that is not the reason why I took a different position, but it was fun. Scott.
I'm Scott Palmer. I also teach for Waukee's Apex program. I teach information management design, and I also teach back at Waukee High School as well. I teach AP Computer Science this year. Formerly, I was a math teacher for 9 years, and then I actually worked overseas for a little bit, and then I came back to Waukee for this Apex program specifically, and yeah, that's my story.
So we won't go too in-depth as far as what Waukee Apex is, but just suffice it to say we do a lot of projects. It's very project-based, the program, and so when Scott and I started in the program, we had to figure out a way how we're going to manage all of these projects, and not just us managing that load, but how we're going to help our students become organized so that they can manage the project work that they're doing.
Yep, and a quick also disclaimer as well is that this was not invented by us. Like, this was not something that we made. It's something that we adapted. And there's actually a gal in the back earlier. She said, "Oh, is this?" Oh, there she is. She's here now. I really like that shirt, by the way. She said, "Hey, is this the same Agile that my husband does at his work?" And I said, "Yeah. You know, is it a software company?" And she said, "Yeah, it is a software company." I said, "Well, yeah, we not necessarily stole this, but we took some ideas because part of the Apex program is we're out in the businesses doing projects for businesses." And so we wanted to know how they were doing it so we could model the same thing. And so we just do a different version of it. It's not as hardcore as what some of the software developers, but it started out as a software development tool. So,
first thing I want you to do is just think in your head right now, think of a number between 1 and 20. It's the interactive portion of the session. So think of a number between 1 and 20. Okay. Who thinks they have the highest number? What do you got?
17.
17. Can anyone beat 17? What do you got?
18.
18.
19.
19. Do I hear 20? Okay, 19. Hold on to that. Who thinks they have the lowest number? 3. Can anyone go lower? 3. Nobody had lower? 3 will work. Okay, so we got 19 and 3. Can you guys come up for a second? You're going to help us out. So you got 19 and 3. Oh, you didn't know that was happening? Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry. All right. Scott, go ahead.
So this is a fun little program, and I can give you the link if you want to email me. I have some cards up here. We do this with our classes every time when we're doing the training, and I also know it's starting to bleed into the English classes as well, because a couple of my kids came and they said, "Mr. Palmer, this is what we did in English." I'm like, actually, this is they took that from me. But anyway, this is a battleship game. We all remember old Battleship, correct? Where you A7, B14, and you sing some people, and you remember all the ships? Kudos to anybody who remembers ships. I got all the ships because I played this a lot. You got them all?
I know how many pegs are in each.
Ooh, okay. So there's one. Do you know the 2-pegger?
The little pontoon boat.
The patrol boat.
Patrol.
Then there's the 3-pegger.
Is that the pontoon?
There's a destroyer.
Okay.
Then there's another. Yeah, there's a 3-pegger, which is a sub. The 4-pegger is the battleship, and then the 5-pegger is a carrier. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you try to sink as many ships as you can. And to put this in context, we're going to charge you. So you got to think about this as a project. We're going to charge you every time that you do some work. You're getting billed. So your company's being billed for you doing the work. So we're going to charge you $10,000 every time you take a shot. Every boat you sink, depending on how big it is, that means that's a successful project. So then we're going to give you some money back. Okay? So we're going to put it in the business context, we're going to have you both play. So biggest number was 19. All right, come on over. What's your name?
Clint.
Clint. All right, Clint. So here's how this is going to work. You're going to get 40 shots total to do some work for a company. And what's going to happen is, since you chose 19, we're going to tell you how you are doing after you've gone 19 times. So after 19 shots, we'll tell you, did you hit or did you miss? And based on that, you can make some adjustments and do your thing. But you get 40 shots total. So, and it'll keep track. Oh, let me zoom out one time. It'll keep track. This was written in euros, and I didn't really feel. It was written in euros. I didn't really feel like going back and doing it in dollars because I didn't want to look at the code because it works. So just imagine that's dollars instead. So go ahead and click away 19 times wherever you think you want to go. Sometimes there's a system, sometimes there really isn't a system.
So I don't want to have a spoiler alert, but our students, when we introduce this to them, it has not clicked for them yet. I feel like for a few of you guys, it's already starting to click because Angela already said, I'm lucky, or I forget how you said it, but I like my number with 3, right? Because Clint has to go 19 shots before, what would be the F word that we're using here? 19 shots before he gets any feedback from the client, right? So, and to us, that's,
40 shots.
you both get 40 shots, exactly.
All right, one more shot and then you get some. All right, so there's some feedback for you, buddy. So he has, all of these guys cost him $10,000, and he got a little bit back for this, so here's his total amount right now. And obviously we're trying to shoot and sink some shit. So you did get some hits, so why don't you go ahead, you got 40 total, you get 19 more and you'll get some feedback, and try to sink as many as you can. And also a spoiler alert is we never know how this is going to go. Like there are times we're like, oh God, oh no, like we think that it's not going to make the point we want it to make, but trust me, it's never happened that way. It always makes the point we're trying to make with students. Oh, we're running out of money. We're running out of money, buddy. Business is going down. All right, one more. Hey, we got one. Either the submarine or destroyer, I can't tell. All right, and you got two more shots to do your business. I don't know what to tell you. It's gotta go over there, right? Ooh! All right, so.
Good job, Clint.
Clint. All right, so unfortunately, Clint started out with $400,000 and now he's in the hole negative $250,000. Because he did a whole lot of work and he spun his wheels in a whole lot of different places, but to no avail. So, you want to explain the next one then?
Yeah, so now Angela's going to get, I think she got 3.
Oh, 3.
We'll make it fair for Clint here. So Angela's going to get her feedback after every 3 shots that she takes.
Ooh, got him.
And one of the differences right there is obviously pretty quickly seen that within her first 3 shots, she knows right where to start targeting things in.
So, yeah, she's already found 3 ships. We're getting closer.
So even though she's still missing, she's still, like I said, knowing where to narrow in, right? She's knowing where to get her focus.
Ooh, nice. Look how much money she has already too, by the way. If you can't see it, it's $660,000. To Clint's negative 210.
What?
Oh my gosh. Well, that helps make the point. Oh, you got one.
There we go.
3 remaining.
Oh, you got 5 left. Oh, you're good.
Oh, I
Go
have
ahead.
5 shots.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking 1 shot.
Oh yeah, there you go. Sink that one. All right, then you got
That's it.
one more.
I think
Oh,
she's
you
got
won.
them all.
I got all my ships.
Yep,
Oh, she got them all?
yep,
There's 5 ships.
yep.
Oh snap. Dang.
So what we do when we do this activity with students, we obviously would do a turn and talk, have them kind of what's the point that we're trying to make, but I feel like in the sake of time, we'll kind of go through it. So the idea is the quicker you get feedback, the better attuned you are to where the client wants you to go, the better you can make the project in the end. I mean, we have time to spare here. And so one of the interesting things that we had happen with one of my students was about halfway through the semester, he said, I just asked him kind of, how do you feel like your Apex life is starting to show up in your non-Apex world, right, back at the traditional high school? And what he said was, I'm starting to use Agile, but with my class is back at the high school, so my English teacher assigned a paper, and we use the word iteration. You guys might think of it as a draft, but we stole that word from the software development world as well. But so he said, when my English teacher assigns me a paper, I write up a first iteration, and I give it to him, and I get some feedback on it, and then I revise that, and I give him another iteration, and I'm like, Ryan, that's amazing. That's drafting. You know, your teachers since third grade have been trying to get you to do that. I'm glad this is what it took to, to really solidify that for you. But so I hope that story illustrates that what we're talking about isn't really new. It's just kind of a different way to think of it. And this is a really concrete way to help students see that quick feedback is really fundamental. Okay. So the question is, how do we get these iterations, like we talked about, ready to ship in the world? And so what we want to talk to you about is this Agile methodology.
Yep, and one of the first things in Agile that they have is the concept of a project board. And also a quick side topic, I think these are things that you could actually take. Like I've been to a lot of conferences where there's a lot of theory, but I think there's a lot of things you can take, but don't think that it has to look exactly like what this looks like. Because I started to see these, again, him and I have given this talk to our staff a couple of times, and I've seen one of these in a bio classroom, I've seen one in a math classroom, we saw them in a 6th grade English classroom. We're starting to see them pop up, and none of them look the same. So when we start talking about cards and lists and boards, it doesn't have to look like this. It can look like however you want it. There's no like rhyme or rules or it has to. It's just a way to organize things. So customize it as you will. I would love to help you. As I said, I got cards up here. If you want to get help setting one up, I would love to help you correspond, whatever. So this is my project board. This is an example of a physical board. This is down at our office. And what we have on the side here, these are all our different projects. And then we have these cards, which we'll get into, and then we have all of our lists going across the top here. So this is what a physical one looks like, and this is the one I've seen in a bio room, and I've also seen in an English room and in a math room as well.
Absolutely. So that's Scott's example of a physical board. Here is, oops. Oh, okay. So then here is an example of a digital board. And so the software we use, it's just a website that we use to make our digital boards is Trello. Trello. It has both free and premium tiers. Everything that we use is in that free tier, but kind of have a premium tier for more of those business accounts and that kind of stuff. And so you can see, if we go back and forth, you can see, the clicker's not working. If we go, oh, there I got it. Okay, so you can see that we've got the same stuff here. We've got planning, doing, and finished. We've got the project here, same thing here. We've got planning, doing, and done, and stuff about the project over here. So it's the same idea, just a different setup. Okay? And those lists are what are super important in Agile. So you've got the board, and then if you go down a little bit, you kind of filter down, the next thing you have are lists. And with Agile, with this methodology, the big thing is you have to have that planning, and then doing, and then done. And you can name them different ways. Some people say to do, in progress, and finished, planning, doing, finished, whatever, but it just needs to have those three ideas for the different lists. Okay? So you can see these different lists in progress. So this is a very early project where they've just got a couple of things that they need to do. Here's a project that has more going on. And so you can see that there's not much in the planning phase, but they're doing a lot of stuff. They also have a lot of stuff that's already done. And then this is a project that is completely finished. So you can see the planning and doing phases are empty, and the done list is what's filled up. Next thing up is cards. So again, if you kind of filter yourself down, you start with that big board, and then you've got those lists, and then the next thing is cards.
Yep, so cards are super important in Trello. These can look, as I said, they will look different depending on what you do with them. The cards that I saw in the biology room, or the cards that I saw in the math classroom were the sections in whatever unit they were on. So if they had a unit on graphing lines, they had to have a card on slope. Can I find slope? Can I do this and this? Can I do this and this? Our cards here, the important thing and what takes a lot of training with my team is getting them to realize that a card isn't build a website or learn chapter 7. Like, that's not a card because that's way too vague and I don't know what that looks like. So each of these, I think the next few, yeah. Like right now you can see this has a very specific task, one specific thing that I can see you doing with that card each time. Like this one says, take drone video. I know what that looks like. I know exactly what they have to do. They have to take the drone video. They already have the house set up. That was in one of the cards over here in the dome. They already picked the house. They already knew where they wanted to go. They had to take the drone video. This one said re-download Drupal 7. They can be something as simple as a card can be, make sure your name is on the top left-hand side, or if you have a specific way that you have them draft their papers, that can be a card. Because it's something physical that you can see that they can start to move across this board. Because if anybody ever watched the Simon Sinek videos, the Why Leaders Eat Last? Anybody ever seen that? Yeah, it's super great. You should watch it. It's really cool. It's about our body and chemicals and why we do things the way we do. It's super great. But one of them is, have you ever written down something on your to-do list that you already did just so you could cross it off? That's because you get a little hit of dopamine in your system. And this really will help, like it will help everybody feel better just to simply have a card that says, put my name in the top left-hand corner. Boom. Move the card over, there's a shot of dopamine that your students or you or whoever get. It seems trivial, but it's really kind of cool. So cards end up being pretty important. They'll eventually all end up in the right side over here. Obviously, as Russ showed you in the last one, you're trying to get them all over the side. And it takes a lot of coaching with your kids to get them to be very specific with the cards. Because they're going to say things like, learn slope. And it's like, no, what does that look like? Well, I need to try some examples. I need to write down the formula. I need to put it in my notes. Those are all cards.
Yep, absolutely. I'll just reiterate that. But to me, that's the heart of Agile, is the card and what goes on the card. Each card should be an individual task that can be accomplished in 1 or 2 sittings type of thing. It depends if you have an 84-minute block or a 42-minute period or whatever, but it should be a thing that I'm going to do this until it's done, and then I'm going to pick up the next thing, okay? You want to make sure, because students have a habit of, like Scott's saying, putting just the big thing. Write the paper, that's the card that they're, no, that's the project. Write the paper is the project. You know, a card is, you know, write the introduction. Another card is revise, have 2 friends look at my introduction. Then I'm going to revise my, those are 3 different cards, okay? So in Trello, and again, we're not saying you have to use Trello, it's just that's what we end up using with our digital stuff. Trello gives you a lot of options to do really cool stuff with your cards. So for example, you can put labels on your cards, so you can keep things organized that way. A lot of the work that we do, we might have different, multiple deliverables. You might call them like a product that comes out at the end. For example, we might have a design project, and we're going to create a logo for a company, we're going to create a business card for a company, and we're going to create a flyer for the company. Those aren't 3 projects, those are 3 deliverables inside that project, okay? And so we might label each card that's going to be for the logo, might be a blue label. That way at a glance, I can see which ones are going toward that specific deliverable. Does that make sense? Okay? I mean, again, I'll go back to the English paper example. You might have every card that has to do with the introduction might be blue. Every card that has to do with the body might be labeled red. Every card that has to do with the conclusion might be green. You guys kind of get this idea. You can assign members to each card on Trello. So if you have a project, do you have an example of that?
Yeah, so right down here, this is actually a project that both him and my team are working on right here. You can see this card has been assigned to certain people.
Yep, exactly. So you can, and we've got some other examples of that too, where, let me show you real quick. Okay, so you can see that in this project, this person, CW, has been assigned this specific card. So he's going to coordinate the build base. Getting the wood and cutting holes, this person is going to do that. All 3 of these people are working on this thing. So it's a real, and Trello also gives a way for you to, in just a couple of clicks, filter out so you can see only your cards. So as someone who's on the project, I can quickly see what are the things I'm specifically working on. And as a project manager, you can just assign specific cards to everybody. Yeah, go ahead.
So can you set it up so that students can also, so like if you have a project manager as a student, is that something?
So I have a super funny story about this one. Is I'm doing this in AP Computer Science right now, and it's a hybrid class, and they're learning very quickly about cybersecurity because they'll get into each other's boards when they like go to the bathroom, and they'll add themselves as leads to these boards, and then they just start messing with people's boards and like throwing stickers on there. There's all these stickers. So they end up being in control of all of their boards. And so yeah, you can have them assign it to themselves. That's what I did. We're on another project together, the IASC one, and I remember I assigned one of mine like 15 cards, and then yours all the rest, and they can do it too, yeah.
And again, this depends on your personal context. Our context is when these projects start, a student creates a board and shares it with us. They're the lead every time. And so I'll show you, I've got an example later on, what I call the generic project board. That's just kind of a starter for them that's got all the stuff they need. So they would create a copy of that board and then start customizing it for their project, if that makes sense. So another thing I want to show, so we are talking here, so you can add labels, members, you can add a checklist to each card, so if there are specific things to get done for that card, you can do checklists, you can have due dates, you can attach, it works with Google Docs, it works with pictures, that kind of stuff. Dropbox, there's apps for the phone, that kind of stuff as well. So you can see some of that stuff showing up here. Here's a due date for it. Here's people assigned to those different cards. So
another fun one that we use too is there's a card aging one, and that can be super helpful for many of you too, because if a card sits in one place too long, then it starts to fade in the actual program. I'll pull it up and I'll show you, but it starts to get like an old rusty piece or an old moldy piece of paper would look like. It starts to get really aged, and that's when you can have a conversation like, hey, Johnny, I see you haven't moved this in a long time. How can I help? Where are you stuck? What can I do? So it's got some really cool features.
And you have a way of doing that with sticky notes.
Oh, yeah. So if you're thinking about doing this on a hard copy, on sticky notes, every time so when they take a card down, and we'll get to a stand-up later, but when they take a card down and say, I'm working on this card, you put a little tick mark on it, and then every time it gets taken down, you put another tick mark and another tick mark, and then eventually, if some card's got 5 tick marks, you can say, guys, why does this, you've been working on this for 5 days, why has this been working on for 5 days?
Well, help with when you stuck.
Yeah, well, who can I connect, in our case, it's who can I connect you with, how can I help you, but for you guys, it would be more of a, hey, we need to get going on this.
So this is that generic, go ahead.
Since this is generic, are there so many columns, and what are they called?
Yep, so you want me to go over this basically, this one?
Yeah, and then to add to that, I would also keep in mind that it doesn't, the same thing I said way at the beginning, it doesn't have to look like this. Like the 6th grade one, I thought the 6th grade one was perfect for her because it gave her an idea of where the class was as a group. So she didn't even have planning doing done. She had like, what was the project?
Whatever the different parts of the project.
Yeah, whatever, they had to create a flyer, create a postcard, and create a video. And so they just moved their name was the card, and then they moved their name along the way. So it can look however you want, but this is what the Agile people do, and this is what we do. So keep that in mind as he talks through this. There is no right answer.
So Trello, if you sign up for a Trello account and create a board on Trello, it'll just be blank. There will be a list here where you create your own list. This is the generic board that I created for our students, if that helps make sense. Okay, so the boards, or the list that I put on a generic project board, the far left one is always this board. And the reason I do this board, it's either this board or sometimes I'll say start here, because sometimes you have different rules for your boards, depending on who the project manager is. Sometimes they might have, how to use this board might be only the project manager touches cards, because the project manager likes to organize it, so the project manager moves them, the project manager adds stuff to it. Some people might have, one of the rules might be anybody can move the boards, but make sure you know that we can see who moved stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And the next one is planning, and then doing done, and then deliverables. And so this is how every board that we do starts. And so the cards in that planning, so again, like I said, when they get a project, they go to this board, they make a copy of it, and essentially they change the name. So then it would just say whatever, Iowa Energy Project or whatever. So the first thing they do is research the client, then they want to create a creative brief, then they want to schedule a discovery meeting, and then after the discovery meeting, they would create cards from their meeting notes, decide on roles if it's a team project, research examples of their deliverables, research the skills needed to create the deliverables, and then this stuff starts to get into we're a graphic design course, so it's stuff like creating a mood board and connecting with the mentor and that kind of stuff. But those are just what they will for sure do on every project. But it's this one that's super important. Create the cards from their discovery meeting notes. So after I've had that initial meeting with my client, got all these things that the client wants, I better come back here and make a card for each one of those things that I'm going to need to do each of those tasks.
And in my AP Computer Science class, when we have more of a strict rubric and a strict, like this is what we have to do, I do the planning on the big board. So I make a big board and then I say, all right, copy these 4 cards over onto yours, this is what you are doing. So that one has a little more structure than these, because in the Apex world, we never know where the project's going to go. We really don't know. It could end up over here, it could end up over here. So when it's a little more strict, you can make the cards and you decide where it goes. But you could also give them the freedom too. It depends on the scenario.
Sure.
Go.
Okay, so I have about 3 students, and I just knowing they would do this. They would move it to the done. Just to.
Oh, right.
Just so I would. Can you move
right
it?
there.
I mean.
Yeah. So what's super fun is somebody actually deleted one of our cards today. We had a Chapter 7 card in AP Computer Science, and somebody went in and were like, "Hey, this morning there's no Chapter 7 card." And I'm like, "That's funny." And next thing I know, somebody's like, yeah, Nick deleted it. And because down here on the side it says who deleted what and who moved what. And so you can see who did what and who goes where.
Can you move it back?
And so the super fun part is it takes like, it literally is like a split second to go up to the server and back down to their thing. And because I will be in the classroom with them and I'll be like, hey, why don't you slide this card, and they'll see me move it over and you have control. And you just have to be careful of that.
And you can see too here, it's archive, not delete.
Yeah.
You can delete things, but they default into that archive model as opposed to deleting. So,
Yep.
sprint.
So another, oh yeah, go.
Is there any calendar interface in this?
Yeah, so there, if you go back, right here, there's a due date. So I do that a lot of stuff, and then it'll actually start, if you sign up for notifications, it'll start to send a notification saying, hey, this is past due, this is past due. And then you can also, if like it was due on a certain date, and then you see that they didn't move it till later, you can be like, well, it'll tell you when somebody attached something, like if it's a draft, and they were supposed to have attached this thing, you can have a conversation with them like, hey, this was due then, but you didn't attach it till now.
There's ways, again, I want to make sure we're clear this isn't like, it's not a Trello session. Trello's awesome, we love it, but it's about Agile. So there's ways you can, on the sticky note, you could add what date and that kind of stuff. If you wanted to format, you could have duplicate sticky notes. You could have a whiteboard with the lists and another whiteboard that's a big calendar, and so you can then put those same cards into different places.
Yep. So if you go to this next sprint, this will actually get to that point, I think, a little bit too, because in our world, the biggest thing, this goes back to the battleship, is about getting iterations out there quickly and getting feedback on them, and not waiting for 19 shots or not, doing it after 3. So my group has a sprint. We do one. We've actually changed it this year to once every Friday, but every 2 weeks we say all of these cards, whatever we made here, should now be all the way over. Like they should all be done in this week's sprint. So at the end of on my group, it's what have you sent to the client by this coming Friday? Like last Friday, we sent out a bunch of client emails saying, here's where we are, what do you think? And now we give them the weekend to respond, and now we make some more cards this week. Then at the end of this Friday, we'll be like, hey, we did this and this and this. What else do you need? What else looks good? And so the sprint becomes a big part of the due dates and keeping things going. And
when I taught 6th grade English, one of the big revelations, which isn't a really big revelation, but I was a young teacher, was like those interim due dates on a big project, So instead of like, it's all due 3 months from now, it's like, well, this part is due here, and this part is due here. Essentially, that's what a sprint is, except that it's always X number of days, or always 1 week, or whatever. It's just a way to make sure you're checking in with your client. So every week I'm going to get feedback from my client. Every week I'm going to make sure I'm in the right zone.
And then everybody knows that that's the same day. Like this little sticky note moves along here, and then everything is due on this day.
Yep. And I would say, in my mind, and feel free to disagree, but in my mind, the sprint is the most negotiable part of this, because the sprint really comes from the software development world, where you guys ever see those app updates where it says on your phone, every 2 weeks we update the Uber app to give you the best experience. Well, they're literally talking about, they're telling you our sprint is 2 weeks versus, and so that works fairly well in Scott's class because we do a lot of that stuff. In mine, we just have a lot of different projects that have different timelines and stuff, so we don't do a set sprint. I more try to get that mindset into each project lead, kind of, do you have a sprint for your project, as opposed to everybody's is a week or everybody's is 2 weeks. I think stop working.
Oh, I'm on it. No, it's the computer.
Perfect, okay. So now, here we are at the most fun and the most important part of the entire process, which is the daily stand-up. And I say that without a hint of sarcasm. It really is the most fun part, and I think the most important part of Agile. That's the daily stand-up. And so every day, every single day, without fail, we do as a team our daily stand-up, which is we're all sitting, and then one at a time we stand up and we say, what I worked on yesterday, what I'm working on today, and what roadblocks I have. It takes 5 to 6 minutes out of our time, but it is the most important time, because then we can start to see, well, these 4 people, when I taught English, we had a curriculum that told me which mini lessons to do and approximately when to do them, right? It was the curriculum that drove that. Well, now that we're doing this project-based world, it's the roadblocks that tell me which mini lessons to do, who to do them with, and when to do them. So if I have 4 students who say, I'm working on these different projects, but we all need to learn something about how to do X in Illustrator. Perfect. You four come up here, I'm going to teach you how to do it. It's that on-time stuff, and it's only because of those roadblocks in the daily stand-up that I know to do that stuff.
Yep, so in my world it's the same, is and one thing to always keep in mind is we make them stand up where they are, and I usually give them the first like 3-4 minutes of class. I say, okay, we started, you got 3 or 4 minutes, organize your stand-up. And then so I let them do their thing, and most of them write it down now. It's funny, one of them accidentally wrote it in the code that they were submitting to this one thing. I was like, you wrote your stand-up in the code? He's like, yeah, I commented it out. Anyway, it was an accident, we fixed it. But they write their stand-up down, and then they literally will stand up and they say those same three things every single day. Whether I'm there or not, everybody knows the stand-up is happening, which is, what'd you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what are you stuck on? And in the software world, I end up being a lot of the what are you stuck on, that's where I go. Because a lot of this stuff, that a lot of the projects we get are sometimes out of the realm of what they can do because it's some pretty complicated software things and web things. So I end up being like getting this server unstuck, getting this program glitch fixed, getting over here. So that tells me as an instructor where to go. Like if they're going on their own, I don't need to bother with them because they said, yeah, I was working on this yesterday and I made this thing and now I'm doing this thing. And then the other thing I would add to that is make sure that whatever they say they do, that's a card. And that's another habit to get them in, is whatever, if they say, I'm working on my first draft, revising the first paragraph, well, cool, that should be a card somewhere, whether it's a virtual card or an actual card. That's a big part of it.
If it's not a card, that's the question. Well, why isn't this a card? Is it because you haven't organized it yet? Let's fix that. Is it not a card because you're trying to sneak one past me and it's not actually important to do, but you're just saying that's what you're going to work on? Well, that's another conversation.
And the reason I put this graphic in here too is because I end up doing cards or I'll do a stand-up every once in a while by project, and then I'll write down where they are. Like this project was, they need to make a business within the app by the end of the day. This one, you and me prioritize questions. So yeah, this had a bunch of question marks, so I knew I needed to insert myself on the stand-up. So them and I prioritize questions in areas we don't know on the list that they had to get to said person. So you can also write down and use that to log what they've been working on too. So to keep a running, if parents want to know what you guys are doing, or if it ever comes back on you, like you can have a running list of what you guys are doing.
So I'm going to, 2 other things about the stand-up. One, I'm going to reiterate how important physically standing up is. For our students, a day off from the stand-up means they get to do it while sitting. And the reason that is because it just elevates the importance of what we do, and so we never have a day that we don't do the stand-up. Even when we have a day where it's like a flex day, where, because we'll do this fairly often on early outs, class is only for an hour, instead of 2 hours, I'm not going to have them drive all the way downtown just for an hour class, so we do a flex day, but we have a group text, and they do Y, T, and R. So they check in on the group text with yesterday, today, and their roadblocks. We do that every time, every day. And then the other thing is, when we've shared this idea with some teachers in the past, they, I think rightfully so, will say, well, I only have 42 minutes, so I really can't give up like 8 or 10 minutes to do this stand-up every single day for a project. And so what we've said was, well, instead, you could set a 3-minute timer and have them do a stand-up just at their group, at their table. So their table mates are the ones who are hearing it, and they're accountable to their table mates. Or you could do it with partners. So Scott and I are partners. I have his sticky note, he has mine. He writes down what I say I'm going to do today. I write down what he says he's going to do today. Then we trade. And then we keep each other accountable throughout the day, that kind of thing. So again, think creatively with this kind of stuff. You don't have to exactly take what we're saying and copy it in your room, but think about ways to implement the methodology.
Yep, and if you do it with partners and stuff, it's super easy because if Russ has a card that's sitting on his desk that says, I should be working on this, then even if I didn't hear what his stand-up was, I could just be like, oh, you're working on the conclusion, or you're working on section 7-4 and over quadratic equations. How can I, you can, as a teacher, see, even though they didn't tell you themselves.
Yep. So here's just some pictures of the daily stand-up in action, which, as you would guess by now, are one person standing and everyone else looking at them. So that is Agile. Agile, again, is the idea of boards, which contain lists, which house cards. You have a sprint, and you have the stand-up to keep it all going. That's what Agile is. The next thing we really wanted to do was kind of show you some of the other ways. So we're going to now turn into the actual Trello part, and we're going to keep this kind of short. But
wait, did you get a picture? Go back.
Here you go. And we will, if you check the SCED thing, we didn't put this up yet because we didn't want to spoil the battleship. We're going to put it up as soon as the session's done, so you'll have this then. So next thing we want to spend just a couple of minutes to show you some other ways to use Trello, because it doesn't have to just be those generic lists of planning, doing, done. So one of the ways I use it is, this is what I call the better board. And so for some of my students, they'll be juggling maybe a couple of projects, but clients will be getting back to them, and so they're kind of ahead of the client. And so what I have is, all these cards are things they can do to get better. And so, for example, if they want to get better at learning graphic design, here's a card about color theory that's got 3 articles to read and 8 things to try. Here's a card about design theory, which has 6 things to try out. If they want to get better at project management, here's an article to read or 4 things to try out about leading a meeting. Here is a bunch of lists of about professionalism, so professional dress or performance reviews. Videography, I've got some more lists over here on the side as well. So again, you don't have to use it in that strict, move this card to here, work on it, move it to done. You can just use the whole idea of lists and cards in different ways. Here's another example. This is what we call our big board. So these are all of our projects. So I have two teams, an AM team and a PM team. And so this is the doing list for the AM team and the doing list for the PM team. Here are confirmed projects. So as soon as somebody's ready to take on a new project, they can grab anything from this list. They get added as the member on this card that gets moved here. Each of these projects has its own board. Essentially, this is my Trello board for the class. So this is where I keep track of all of the projects that we're doing, if that makes sense. Okay. And then I think this is my last one. So this is another one where this board has basically nothing to do with Agile, but it's a way for us to keep track of each other as a team. This is our team board, and so this is links to a bunch of different boards, links to information. Each of them, I had them the first week of class create their own card, and so that got them using Trello. So they had to add a picture to it. They had to put their contact information in. We did a quick little Myers-Briggs, so they put that in. It's just a way to get to know each other. This one's pretty nice. This is the to discuss list, and anyone can add to this. And then during our stand-up, during our daily stand-up, I go through everything that's on that to discuss list. So I bring it up, like, hey, LinkedIn, has everybody got their stuff on LinkedIn yet? Our norms, have we figured out our norms? Somebody created a Spotify playlist for our team, and so here's a link to the Spotify playlist. Here's just a reminder. And as soon as we talk about this, I'll say, can I move this to done yet? And if we get a consensus that yes, then I just drag it over to the done list. That's one less thing to discuss. And then this one's kind of cool too. This is our show and tell list. And this actually it was a student's idea. And so our show and tell list is where they can put up work that they're working on and get feedback from each other. And so, and you can see down here, this one's had 3 comments on this one, and so they'll 3 comments on this one, so they'll put something up, and then they'll write something in the description that just says, hey, here's kind of my thoughts on this. What do you guys think about the colors? What do you think about the typography? Whatever. And then they get a little comment chain going from their peers on that kind of stuff. So that's all I had. Scott, did you want to show some of your boards too?
Well, yeah, and I think Russ and I talk about this all the time. It's very different living in the world we live in now, and I've kind of started, so I learned about Apex and project management and all this other stuff, and I didn't know what it would look like going back to a regular classroom, so I don't know how many of you are regular classroom, English and math and social studies. So I thought I would show some examples of how I've taken this, and it can translate back. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a part of the Apex program to make this happen. You don't have to be working for a business to use this. So I thought, this is my board. This is what it looks like from an administrator standpoint. And it's a little crazy, but like my AP Computer Science, here is the big board that I have, and all I do is say, this is what's due this week. You have to do chapter 7. And then inside chapter 7 is what they have to do, and then I make a nice little checklist. I say on this page you have to make a dice rolling software, on this one you have to make an airline reservation program, and so on. And then what they will do is they will copy that to their boards, and it will look like, they copy it to their boards, it looks like this, and then I can see what they're working on. And then I also, in this one, I have a to be graded pile. So when they're done and they think like this is good enough, they'll put it in the to be graded, and then me as a teacher, whether I'm in class or out of class or late at night, whenever I have a spare minute, I'll just get on Trello real fast and I'll see what they attach to this thing. And what I can then do is I can leave comments and tell them why things aren't the way I think they should be or why things need to change. Like this one, I've left a bunch of comments. So I can say things like 511, I like that it asks for the numbers, puts them in order, think of this problem in a different way, and I can leave little comments. and then I'll put it back, so this goes back to your question, I'll put it back in the in progress so they know I looked at it, and then when they're done and they think it's good enough again, they'll slide it back over, I'll download it, look at it, and then eventually the goal of getting it to be way over here in the done pile. So it's a super easy way to use this in a regular classroom. If you have a set curriculum, like this is what we have to do, because then you can dictate all of these things. And I also wanted to show you, so today I do my announcements a little bit different than what Russ was talking about right there, is I do a daily card like today. I wanted to show you stand-up. So this is where I recorded our stand-up this week, or today. This actually was a card I made today. I do my quick little announcements like, I have to leave at 2 o'clock because I have to come to this thing. And so I do my little announcements, and then I also did a project stand-up and then the regular stand-up, but then I write down, this is what we did, this is what you said you're doing, this is where we are, this is where we are, this is where we are. So there's tons of different ways to use this thing. I would re-emphasize so many times that it doesn't have to be the way we said it. As I said, even just a biology teacher she normally hands out a worksheet, and now she handed out the worksheet, and then you just posted it on the board when you're done, and she made it look all pretty with gold and things around it, and that's not really my thing, but it's a thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We put the slide.
Yeah. So anyway, are there any? Do you want to see this computer science thing anymore, or is that? I don't know what else to do. I'm telling you, it can work in a regular classroom, man. And the kids love it because they don't have to do anything. Yeah, go.
Just to clarify, do you have both physical cards and Trello for the same tasks?
You can.
I don't. You don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, neither of us do.
So when do you use the physical cards then?
So if you go into a business, like I had a meeting with this guy from Shift Interactive the other day. Their whole team every morning at 9 a.m. has a stand-up. I think he had to cancel one meeting because he's like, I have to go, our stand-up's at 9. So they even call it a stand-up. But their whole team will gather around the board, like standing there like this, and then they as a team can focus on where do we need to go. But they have way more columns than we do. They have like a little column over here that's this, and a little column here, and then so they start to divvy up cards that way. And then you can also have it as a physical or on an online board too if you wish. It depends. But the physical one is nice because then you're all in the same place talking about it at the same time. Does that make sense?
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say was we're in a nice position where all of our students have computers. And so that's one of the reasons.
And that's why we showed the physical one.
Yep, that's one of the reasons why we default to Trello, just because it's a little bit easier that way. And like Scott said, you're not taking home a stack of papers. You still have all the stuff that you need to grade, but it's just on your computer. Versus when I was in 6th grade, we didn't have computers, and so that's when we were doing that kind of stuff. Or I shouldn't say I was, but
Yeah.
you did, yeah. What's up?
You kept referring to them as teams, but I'm thinking of like an interactive media class in a high school. If you have 10 kids in a small high school, but could I use it as each kid does their own project, and I'm watching if they're planning, investigating,
Absolutely.
doing, and done.
Absolutely.
But again, it's one person would still work.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying with the English teacher did it in each person was a card, and then they just moved the card over.
Absolutely.
And it really can. I mean, you got to think it's got to be thought about more as like an organizational thing than like this is the way it has to look and this is the way
to fit our programs are different
Totally.
than everybody.
Yeah, and that's why we wanted. So that's why I think his is a great question about the physical board.
Yeah,
you know,
which one?
because we got lucky because our students have laptops, and obviously in AP Computer Science everybody has a computer. But if you don't have that luxury, you can. And even if you don't have, you just need a board, a wall somewhere to put sticky notes. Really.
And I'll just say one more thing about that too. If you use Trello, so you can actually have multiple checklists. So like if you had a card for Russ, it was my card, I could put a checklist in every single day. That's like, here's the 3 things I'm gonna do today, check, check, check.
Okay.
And then the next day, it's a new thing, a check, check, new checklist type of thing. Does that make sense? What I'm
Yeah,
saying?
so
Okay.
each kid would
Go
have.
ahead.
Yeah.
I'd like to share this with a teacher, and I know one of the things she's going to ask me is, so what's the advantage of this over just handing out the syllabus like I always do?
I never dealt in the world of syllabi
I didn't
because
either.
I was a math, I taught math for so many years.
In my mind, this has built-in accountability with that daily stand-up and also with the visual of seeing the board and seeing where things are moving. Perhaps you could create columns on the syllabus, like could this be, but I mean, in my mind, just a list of stuff that's going to get done this year, if that's what we mean by like a syllabus, I think those are just
Yeah,
those are different. You know.
active versus passive. I don't know, and I just really got, I was in the regular math classroom for so long. It's so much easier for me now to talk about these things because it's not me coming up with them. I can be like, listen, I didn't make up this Agile thing, but all of these giant businesses and companies and all of these little businesses and companies, like you can reference them a little bit too. You can be like, listen, I'm getting you ready for the real world. If you go home and ask your dad or mom about Agile, and if they work in a place that does Agile, I mean, think about that conversation with the kid. I think that can get them a little more motivated than just a checklist on a syllabus somewhere. I'd be like, we're going to do Agile. I mean, even the words are cool, like sprints and cards and Agile and Scrum. Actually, it's called the Scrum board too, but you can use all these fun words too.
We went on a tour of performance marketing and Shift Interactive in West Des Moines. It's a marketing and design firm. And when we walked in and they were doing their stand-up, I was like, you know,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think on top of this, is more student-centered than a syllabus.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
They're taking control of their own learning and setting their own goals. And
And-
that's the benefit. They're going to be more involved.
That's a really good point, and you can leave individual comments. Like it's really easy for me. I have 15 students in AP Computer Science, which means there's a ton of stuff we're trying to do because it's only in a semester too. We don't even get the full year. We only have a semester. So I'm constantly like looking at code, leaving a comment, looking at code, leaving a comment. Individual comments rather than like waiting until the test over chapter 7 and then telling them what they should have been doing. I can do it just real fast on the spot while they're working, and I can pull them back at me. It's just, I like that too. I like that. Student-centered, yeah.
I could see a student just say, let's make a list for each of my classes and letting them, I could see a student taking a lot more ownership.
Yeah, one of mine is, I have her all day long actually. I have her in AP Computer Science, then she comes to me in Information Management Design as well, so I have her all day long, she's with me. She's one of the team leads on the robotics, and she started the Trello board with the robotics team, and so now they're doing their little Trello thing. It's one of those things, it can look like anything you want it to look like, and I think if you pick it up and do it, just start with a board. And that's why I think going back a slide, I think,
Which one?
the one with the Agile Scrum board, that. Just start with a board, you know? It's not one of those things where it's gonna be perfect the first time you roll it out, and I think we're so used to like, we have to know exactly how it's gonna look. It might look different. Like a kid, I added that to be created pile because I got super tired of looking in the done pile for what they were trying to do, so I made it to be created. It can morph as you go. Maybe it's the best way to say it.
Anything else? Or else you guys get out early? We were going to say, it's the last session of the day, so you can leave if you want to, but we're going to say we can stick around if you want to start one up for yourself and start putting the project on.
I got cards up here too.
Well, yeah, so we'll stick around till 4.
Would love to help.
Yeah.
It has an iPad app.
Oh yeah, there's an iPhone app, there's an iPad app, there's an Android app. That's really
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.